Any advice for any just Black men who are trying to heal and the art of letting
That's
go?
hilarious.
Who could you pair with Amy Winehouse? Who could be my dad?
I can see Amy Winehouse being a single mother. I could.
One thing about being Black is that a lot of the things that push culture comes from us. If we want to save space for queer Black people, we're going to have to do that ourselves. Perfect. All right, well, welcome. I'm very excited. I don't really have a formal intro other than hello, welcome. My name is Cayman. You're listening to Kurious, and today it's a very special day for two reasons. One, because we have our first internet guest. We have a host. We have a music artist, and we have the host and creator of the Art of Letting Go podcast. And before we go to the second reason why it's special, first of all, welcome, Mike. Welcome to Kurious.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. I'm very excited because, like I said, you are my first internet guest, which means a lot.
Oh, that's really cool.
Thanks. I'm sure getting guests is like really, really hard. So
yeah,
I'm very grateful that you respond. You came back with lots of information. Some people, it's like pulling teeth and you're just sitting there like, what am I doing this for? Like, what are we doing this for? But yeah, I'm very grateful for that. And then the second reason why is today's my birthday. I am turning 30 today.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Man. How do you feel
30?
turning
Like,
30?
what was that about? Do I look 30?
30 is a great age. Like 30 is that age where you don't have to, when you're in your 20s or even earlier, you're trying to please your parents, please this person, that person, but in the 30s it's all about you.
Yes.
How do you feel turning 30 today?
Oh gosh, honestly, I just had this mini conversation with my friend, but I want to start having more fun. I want to have more fun with the podcast. I want to have more fun with my life. So it's very interesting that you're here, because I'm like, damn. Because a year ago, I wasn't launched. Like, I wasn't like, I launched in 2023. So literally a year ago, I was just sitting at home like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Like, not a lot of people know. And I honestly thought it was going to take me years to get here. And the fact that it took me less than a year is like kind of weird. But like I said, this is half the battle. We'll see if I can make it to January, because if I can't get a guest, I don't know what I'm going to do. But yeah, so I'm very, very excited.
Well, I appreciate you having me. I really do.
Oh, thank you. All right, well, let's get started. I want to get to know you. I guess the hope, a little bit about Kurious is, it really is the name, is I'm very curious about people and learning and all that stuff. And I felt like, I guess, to give you a little bit of backdrop, in 2020, when things hit the fan, I felt like a lot of people were just so comfortable being comfortable. And I felt like that was a really big issue, was that people just were scared. And I remember I was talking to my mom about how she knows all her neighbors, right? And then I'm like, I live in a condo and I can't tell you anything around a neighbor next to me. And she grew up in neighborhoods where you knew everyone down 2, 4, 5 blocks. And it just was kind of a weird feeling. And I started therapy that year, so I learned a lot about myself. And so through the work of therapy, it made sense for me to start a podcast. And so that's, kind of the elevator pitch of Kurious, and what, hopefully that gives you a little bit of more what you're about to embark on in this conversation. But I want to start with you. I want to get to know you. I want my guests to get to know you. So I thought of a question. It's a little off the ordinary because I hate small talk, but so go with me a little bit. You have tragically passed away. Okay. You are dead, right? We don't know how you died. Probably a cop. Doesn't matter, but you are dead. So now your family and your friends have to write together an obituary for you. If your families and friends had to come together to write a quick obituary for you, what are some things that they would say about you?
I think they would say that I'm honest,
Okay.
I'm authentic. I'm very expressive in my emotions and creative. I feel like those are the main things that they would say.
Mm-hmm.
It may be funny. I don't know. Maybe that's me
It's
saying
just a
that,
little
but
bit of
I
funny.
feel like they would say I'm funny.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. My friends, my therapist, like you should be a comedian. I was like, absolutely not, girl. Like, I don't think I'm funny. I think I'm amusing, but I don't think I'm funny. But I think some of my friends will say I'm funny too. That's good. Okay, cool. Where are you from? I know you live in New York right now, but are you born and raised in New York? How did you end up in New York?
So I'm actually in Houston. I'm born and raised in Houston.
Okay.
I ended up. I'll give you just a quick journey, but
Mm-hmm.
born and raised in Houston. I moved to New Orleans to go to college. I went to an HBCU, Xavier University
Mm-hmm.
of Louisiana, and I was composing music at the time, and I just felt like LA was the place I was supposed to be. So I I moved to LA, packed up everything, moved to LA, and I spent 13 years out there. Like the last 13 years, I just gave up my apartment in July to be a nomad, and I took a road trip with my partner up to Vancouver for 2 months, stopping just a bunch of places in between, and got back to LA, drove my car to Houston, and went back to LA for like a week, and then I spent I was in New York for the last month and a half, and I needed some time to just recalibrate and figure out the next steps of
Yeah.
life, and that's what brought me back to Houston.
Gotcha. So you said you were with your partner. What as someone what's the difference between, like, for me, I grew up in Minnesota. That's where I live right now. And so I only know the gay scene of Minnesota. And I was just talking to this guy online who moved from LA to Minnesota and was like, is this the scene here? And I was like, yeah, welcome. So as someone who's from LA and been in New York and been in Houston, what are the gay scenes like there and down there? What are they like? What are their differences?
That's a good question. I will say the gay scene that I've experienced in Houston has probably been the most uh culturally diverse that
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced. Is majority black and brown, and the energy is just felt in those spaces. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the music caters to us. Uh it just feels like a safer environment. Um I can honestly say that LA was probably not the safest as far as community. Like in Houston, I when I do go out, I do feel a part of community.
Yeah.
I don't feel like people are just purely connecting off sexual attraction.
Yes.
And that's really all it was in LA for the most part. And don't get me wrong, I have some really good friends in LA. I've met really good people in LA, but when you talk about the scene,
Yeah.
it is literally how you look,
Yes.
your desirability, what other people can do for you. It's a very LA. The scene is very. It seems like people are opportunists.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
If I'm being honest, a lot of people are just trying to see what they can get. Black people don't really take time to connect with black people sometimes, and I hope people from LA hear this. I hope it challenges people to do better,
We'll see. Don't get
because
me canceled, girl.
no, I'm not gonna get you canceled at all, because it's all on me. This is Mike Brown saying this, so they could cancel Art of Letting Go if they want to cancel somebody. But I would speak to black people in Los Angeles in the gay bars, and they would not speak back. And just being from the South, like, black people just speak to black people. Going to New York, I would say it was pretty diverse. I didn't really spend a lot of time in the bars, just because I'm kind of barred out. I'm kind of burnt out on nightlife, and
Yeah.
by the time I got to New York, I was just like, you do one bar, you've done them all, and even just being in a relationship is like it doesn't really speak to me right now to be in a bar. Like, if I want to connect with people, I have, I'm a musician. I like
Yeah.
yoga. I like creating. Like, it's a million other things to connect with people on.
Yeah. I love that. I will also echo that LA message to, I would say, Minnesota as well. But it's different in a way because it's primarily like a white space.
Yeah,
But even with the black gays, it just feels like, what are we doing? Like, I don't get it. I think that's the only thing that comes to my mind whenever I'm on these apps. I'm like, what are we doing? And especially, like, I mean, say what you want to say about Jacked, but Jack to me is just like once again, like, what are we doing? So I'm just like,
Yeah.
it's so hard when the app is kind of messed up and then the people in the app is kind of messed up, and we're still showing like sagging pictures. We're still showing pictures that look like they've been taken on MySpace with all like the glitter and the rhinestones, right? And I'm just like, what JC Penney 90s commercial are you using for your profile picture? And they're just so mean and so aggressive. And that's one message I would love to send to the Black gay community as well. Is like, can we stop being so aggressive? And I just wish we were just more transparent and more vulnerable. And also, like you said, I wish we were connecting more. And like,
Well,
yeah.
I think a big thing is that we need our own spaces. Like I think it's valuable for us to have our own spaces. You know, Glad did this thing in September that I was a part of, and I think it was, I want to say it was like 150 Black queer people
Hmm.
across the spectrum. It wasn't
Hmm.
just men; it was men, women, trans people, older, younger people
Hmm.
from just all over the map, and like the common thing that we had was our blackness and our queerness, and we were able to bond on those two things, and the energy wasn't, it, at least for me, it didn't feel sexual. It didn't feel
Yes.
like we were only here because we are having
Yes.
sex with people. Like it was like we are all here as creatives and really here to connect on something. And I think we need more of that. I think we need more spaces of safety and more spaces of healing, because just, you know, being Black alone is
It's
it
hard.
requires a lot of healing. So
Yes.
you add the queerness on top of that. It's like we got a lot of work to do. You know, we gotta be more empathetic to each other and kinder to each other so that we all can collectively grow.
Yes. I love that. Yeah, I mean, preach. I mean, you summed it all up. I don't know how. I mean, it's easier said than done, but I would
It
love for
is.
us to figure something else out, and also realize, one thing about being Black is, when you like take a step back, you realize that a lot of the things that push culture comes from us. So if we want a safe space for queer Black people, we're going to have to do that ourselves. If we want romantic relationships, we're going to have to do that ourselves. And I feel like, and this is not just for Black gays, it could be for everybody, but we're talking to our people. Like, we have this savior complex that we just think that someone else is going to come and save us. And it's like, we, it's just that's just not reality. And it's never have been the reality. And if we really took a good deep in our Black culture when it comes to music, when it comes to politics, when it comes to entertainment, we are the trailblazers. So we can also be trailblazers in relationships and love for each other, instead of just staying with the status quo because it's the easiest route.
For sure. And I agree with you. I think a lot of us, and you know, even probably myself at certain points in my life, have looked for a savior to save. But I think when we do the work, that's when that transition of, you know, instead of looking for the example, being the example comes into play. And you know, I think as we all continue to grow, we'll continue to
Yeah.
create that for each other.
Yeah, let's hope, girl, because it's cold out here. It's cold out here. That's why when I'm like, let me know if I need to move, because all my friends are like, you should move. I'm like, I'm not moving. Like, I'm not picking up my life for some wiener like that. That's just like
Nah.
not. That's not. It never. What rom com worked out where a girl picked up her life for some wiener? It never works out. So I'm not. I learned. I'm not doing that. But yeah. So okay, shifting gears, how did you get into music? Because I know in your podcast you write and rap, intros for yourself, which I think is so creative, because I struggle with intros. I hate intros. I hate outros. I just like to talk. Like, let's get to the heart right away. But it is you. It's your podcast. It's your project. It's your, an extension of you. So it makes sense that if you have the ability to write raps and music, then that you will obviously make your own intro. So how did that come about? How did you know you can write? Like, what happened?
I mean, I've had interest in music since a kid. So like since third grade, I remember my parents buying me a tape recorder, and I remember recording myself talking, recording myself, you know, making up songs. And those are all the things that I'm essentially doing today. So I'm living out my childhood as an adult. But yeah, I think in college was when I really got sparked to start pursuing music and just seeing what I could do with it. I was in a band pretty much my entire life, like school band. And once I started to learn how to record myself with, professional equipment and stuff, it sparked my interest. But music has always been a way for me to just express my feelings.
Mhm.
And sometimes the things that I couldn't put in words, I was able to put in music. Like, when I was trying to figure out my sexuality, um music was that place that, when I couldn't talk to anybody, I could go to a keyboard, or I could go to a drum machine and just put it in there.
Did you have any like I like how you said, explore your sexuality because I can't remember ever. I mean, I guess, I played with Barbies and I always like had a towel on my head and like pretend it was long hair. Did you ever put the blanket around your waist as a little kid and pretend it was like a dress or something?
No, not really, but I think for me, I've always just been attracted to males.
Hmm.
So like that has been my exploration of, like,
Hmm.
you know and I think for myself, it was also what kind of made me confused about it, because it's like, okay, I'm into sports, I'm into this, I'm into that, all these things that really have no real value of determination of your sexuality.
Yeah.
But I thought because I was into all these boy
Yeah.
things that I wasn't gay, but I was only looking at and
Yeah.
attracted to guys. So for me, the exploration came of, like, who am I? What is this? And you know, doing it in the dark again, having that feeling of loneliness and being alone and needing somewhere to express it, that was what music was for me. And then having the opportunity to actually, live in my truth and, like, really be honest about my sexuality gave me the freedom
Hmm.
to explore in a way of, okay, I don't have to hide.
Hmm.
I don't have to tiptoe around. And
Hmm.
it's still a learning process. You know what I mean? Like, I do remember as an adult, my first time holding a guy's hand, my first time kissing a guy in public. Like, I remember all of those things and the fear. And, even as somebody that has done a lot of work around it, like, sometimes those triggers can come up, and you have to remind yourself, like, who you are today.
I love that. Yeah, I always never forget my first like his. I'll say his name. He's not watching this, and there's so many TJs in the world. Like you can't pin him down, but his name's TJ, just in case people are out there. But yeah, yeah, summer camp. Yeah, I can go on details, but we don't have to go on in details. But it's interesting that you said you did quote unquote masculine things because as me growing up as being gay, I never did those masculine things. I hated sports. I remember telling my dad I hate to sweat. I didn't like anytime the kids were playing anything. I was like coloring, I was jump roping, I was doing chalk, whatever. I was using my imagination. And even my families have this thing back when we were younger, and my dad's generation still do this to this day. But they will play basketball once a week at some gym, and so it was a great cousin guy bonding time because the dads would play, and then the boys we were too young, so we play like Spear the Queer. Now that I know that it's like a bad game, but like rough, toughening games. But then as we got older, the dad started bringing the kids back in, and I was in the middle age. And my dad brought me into the game, and I was like, no. I tried it. It was too much. It was just too much. And I am not someone who likes the hoorah of sports. I don't like to be tackled. I don't like
Yeah.
the aggression. Like I don't like when we have to jump up and slap the door before we leave, and then like be like your mom's a fucking bitch and all that shit. Like I don't have time for that. But
Yeah.
put me on a stage with some music and some dancing and some dresses and some curtains. That's where I shine. So I say that because I quote unquote did more feminine things, and then people just shouted gay at me, and then like, oh, you're gay, you're gay, you're gay. And not even knowing what that was, but just knowing that it immediately cause this reaction of fear or anger from other people when I'm just, playing chalk. So it's interesting hearing the other side of it where I actually did do the straight things, quote unquote, but still felt like the box or the label of these doesn't fit who I am as a person. So I like that. So
I
any
appreciate
musical
that.
artist oh, go ahead.
No, I was what I was gonna say was, as I was listening to you, I kind of felt balance in my journey. I didn't necessarily, like, dress up and stuff, but tapping into, like, that creativity and that imagination as a kid. Like, I was heavily influenced by that. So I had a really large balance in my life. And I think exploring more of my femininity came more so in my adulthood. And I feel like my journey has protected me in the way of
Hmm.
like when I did start to explore it, I was embraced for it. Like, you
Hmm.
know, the first time I painted my nails, all my friends, like especially my straight friends, were excited that I was taking this step in exploring
Hmm.
myself. When I joined ballroom and I was learning how to vogue, and like my friends were like, "Man, keep going, keep doing it. Like
Yes.
keep unlocking these versions of yourself." And for me, I do it because I want to see how it feels, and if it resonates with me, I'll continue to do it. If it doesn't, I won't. Or whenever I feel like it, I may not have my nails painted right now. I may not have them painted every week, but if tomorrow I woke up and I wanted to do it, I would do it with no question.
Yeah, I like that. I think I'm on that journey too, is expressing more of myself, and I think this podcast is one of the biggest starts of it. And I get so I was just hanging out with my friends over the weekend, and they were talking about, you know, well, I'll just say it and I'll cut it out. And one of my friend was like, she was like, I like you on this one. I was like, why? And she's like, because everything that comes out of your mouth is nothing but love. Like, you told us how much you appreciate us. You told us, you love your city. You're just more free. You're flirting. Even though my friends will say I'm a natural flirt. I don't see it, but I guess when I'm, more comfortable in an environment, they're like, oh no, it's there, baby. Like, don't worry, it's there. So I think I'm doing that as well. And like I'm going to a rave with my friend, and I want to dress up. I want to finally dress up and be nice, but I want to be queer leaning, but I also don't want to be too feminine. And I always want to play with that too. I think a lot of people think because you're gay, you want to automatically go on the feminine route. And I feel like there's ways to have that balance. So learning through fashion, how can I, wear women's clothing but still make it feminine? Or I have this hot pink monochromatic look, which hot pink is a gay color, but hopefully I would style it and wear it in a way where it's masculine. So, it's kind of like a tease in my way. That's how I want it to be, like a tease.
I
So,
like that.
yeah. Okay.
That's
So,
cool.
you said music. Who were you listening to? I was just watching a documentary about Little Richie, and then, how he's, queer and he had queer icons and stuff like that. Did you have anyone in the music world that made you feel seen, or, anyone else that, you vibe to?
This might sound cliche, but Frank Ocean was like that first artist, the first
Even when you were
like
making music as a kid?
when I was making music, it was I was definitely tapped into a lot of Pharrell, Neptunes, Kanye. I was heavily invested in rap music. Um yeah, like that was kind of what I grew up to. So a lot of the music that I listened to was kind of anti me, you
Yeah.
know. But I think I do appreciate experiencing it because as a student I was able to learn from some of the best and use it to become who I am.
Hmm. Hmm. I like that. You said Frank Ocean, which I hate to admit it, but like the only Frank Ocean song or album I would say I liked or introduced me to Frank Ocean was Blonde. I didn't get Orange Channel. I listened to it not too long ago, and it's great. It's great. But Frank Ocean just has such a heavy core following. And it's not like I'm saying I don't understand why. I get it because I like Blonde and I'm waiting for another album. But it's just interesting to see how his impact and who you talk to and like how his music. And I guess, I never would have thought the first person you would have said was, Frank Ocean. So it talks to how
Well,
good he is.
Well, when you mentioned like a queer artist, like he
Yeah.
he was that person that made me feel seen because he was kind of quote unquote masculine,
Yeah.
but also he just had this energy about him that he projected in the world that was just so cool. So when he came out, um, and it's so crazy, like when he came out, I was probably going through like one of my darkest depressions, just dealing
Hmm.
with my sexuality, and
Hmm.
I think that was when I actually accepted being gay and just didn't have anybody to talk to, was scared my entire family and friends were gonna disown me.
Hmm.
And when I saw how my friends embraced Frank Ocean, it made me feel safe. It was like, well,
Hmm.
they don't even know this person and they embrace him so much because he's talented and they like him. And it made me feel like, well, maybe people will do the same for me. And I got to see Frank Ocean live in Los Angeles, and this was around the time Blonde came out. And his music just feels like progression with my
Hmm.
life. Like there's so many different Frank Ocean songs that not even the lyrics of the song, but an experience that I had while hearing that song may come up for me. So it's like,
Hmm.
I've been at the beach and maybe a song touched me in a way that like, you know, some other artists may not have. And he's a good reflection artist for me. So a lot of times when I listen to Frank Ocean, I get to reflect on just my journey and where I'm at.
Yeah, I love that. I hear what you're saying too, and I guess when you were talking, I'm like, what queer artist helped me out? And honestly, none, because there wasn't really that. Like when I'm like talking about like roller gardening days in the early 2000s, like no one was really out in that time. And then I was thinking of like
Yeah.
Luther Vandross, but like he was out after he died and stuff like that, so it didn't like. And I wasn't, that was in the 80s. I wasn't alive in the 80s, so I can't really utilize that. But you know, I guess going back to the 2000s, it's like you had Britney, you had Beyonce, you had even Christina, you had these pop girls that were just like, just free in their sexuality and free in who they are and being sexy and being cool and just I don't know, just being fierce. And I think that freedom to me as a gay kid, like I resonated to that and resonated to any pop girls that were out there. And that helped me. It definitely awakened something. Like something was plugged in when I was listening to Britney Spears. I was like, what is this vibe? But now, growing
Yeah.
up, being gay, you're like, oh, okay, she made music for the girls, so it makes sense. So I always said if I had to be a musical artist, well, I always had different genres. I would love to be a singer-songwriter. I can't write to save my life. But I something about singing songs, I just would love to do that. I think it's the storytelling too. It's like the writing that I enjoy, and that you can have a conversation in music. You could tell a story in an album. I think that's what I enjoy about it. Um, but if you can,
So
okay, so if you can take your favorite two artists and have them as parents, these are your parents that are going to teach you how to be the artist that you want to be. You know what I mean? Think of Blue Ivy. Like she has
mhm.
Beyonce and she has Jay-Z. Like that means if she decides to be in music, she has two goddamn good parents that can guide her. Who would be your Beyonce and Jay Z? And it can be like mixed genders and all that stuff.
I would say Pharrell and Missy.
Oof.
As you were talking about Britney, I Missy was the first person that came up for me, and Missy used to be one of my favorite artists of all time. And as I think about Missy, like, I never saw Missy as a sexual being. Like Missy just was
Mm-mm.
this really
Mm-hmm.
cool,
Mm-hmm.
creative
Super
artist
duper
that
fly.
was free.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what resonates for me with Missy. And I think if I had to choose two musical parents, it would be Missy and Pharrell. So if they ever hear this, like, please adopt me.
Listen, I'm trying to believe in manifesting. People say if you speak it, it'll happen. So Pharrell and Missy,
Right.
like even just a writing session, even if they bring you into like the studio just for a quick listen, I'm sure that would be great. I've always said, I have so many. I think the rotation is Marvin Gaye and Maxwell. Like I love a
Okay.
good R&B, like Cry Me a River, falsetto, smooth, like you know what I mean? Just like give it to me simple and just give it to me good. And I feel like Maxwell and Marvin Gaye would be a great combo. I also, if I had to have a heteronormative couple, I would kick out Maxwell and put in Erica Badu. So I'll have Erica Badu or
Okay.
Maxwell. But yeah, either Maxwell, Erica Badu, Marvin Gaye, and I don't know who to pair up Amy Winehouse with, but she might just be a single mother. I might just have a single mom and just have Amy Winehouse.
I can see that. That's hilarious.
Who could you pair with Amy Winehouse? Who can be my dad?
I can see Amy Winehouse being a single mother. I could. Like that sounded perfect the way you put it. Like I can see that.
Oh gosh, I don't know what that says about Amy Winehouse, but yeah. Oh my god, interesting, interesting. All right, let's dive into your podcast, The Art of Letting Go. Like, what made you come up with the podcast? I know you had it for some time, but what was the start? What was the inspiration, and how did you get to where you are today?
So I started podcasting because therapy was too expensive.
Yes, I
I
heard you
was
say
going to
that. Yes.
therapy and I quit my job. I think I was working at Starbucks at the time or something like I was working at Starbucks at the time. Shout out to Starbucks. But I
Well,
was working at Starbucks
hold on
and
now.
quit.
You know, Starbucks is under fire because of this whole Palestine Israel thing. So just be careful before you shout out Starbucks.
So shout out to the person that hired me at Starbucks, not the company. We'll shout out the person that
Okay.
hired me
Okay.
at that place because I had health insurance working part-time there. So they took care of me as an employee. But when I quit my job, I lost my insurance and my therapy price had went up, so I couldn't afford it anymore. And I needed a place to still share my thoughts and speak. And podcasting I was just getting into podcasts, like listening to them. So I was like, this feels like a good thing for me to try out. One of my close friends, he said that he would be open to doing it with me, and we did it together, probably for about maybe like almost a year and a half to 2 years. And he had a child and had to focus on his family and stuff. And for myself, I had to make that decision of what do I want to do, and I wanted to keep going, so I kept the podcast going. And I've been hosting it by myself probably since 2019. And
Jeez.
yeah, so that was kind of like the restart of it. And I feel like I've had so many points of like restarting this podcast. Like in the pandemic, I had to completely pivot to doing virtual episodes. Like, I this is the pandemic was when I really got into doing podcasting virtually. And then I went back to doing it in person. And now I've had to pivot again because this is the first time I don't have my own space to podcast. So I'm podcasting out of people's houses. I'm going to parks. I'm literally doing it everywhere that I possibly can on different equipment. So sometimes like I may have a good microphone, sometimes I may have the phone. So, I'm doing everything I can to keep it going, but it's a journey, and it's been fun. Like it's been fun not only just putting it out in the world, but just, you know, sharing my journey with people.
Yeah, I resonate with that because I feel like it's nice that you shared that because as someone who's doing a podcast, it makes I don't it's just not like we were talking about before, like getting guests and stuff like that. It's just like I don't want to say it's hard, but like it's gonna test you if you really want to do this. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm facing. It's like, do you want to do this? Because like there's this lady named Trisha Paytas, and she's famous, and she has her podcast, and she talks about how like she's DMing people left and right. And she would talk about how people will miss their schedule appointments or like scheduling will go wrong and stuff like that. And I like hearing those stories because it feels like people out there, other rich people, are still going through scheduling problems and issues. But as someone who's starting off, right, and you're looking up or looking not in your own circle, it feels like it feels much more easier with everybody else. And then you look at your challenges and you're like, well, what's going on here? And I like hearing that you have to pivot because I'm being forced to think about pivoting in a direction that I just don't know if it makes sense for me. But at the end of the day, I don't want to give up because I don't have anything else to do with my time. And this is something communicating and talking has been something I've always been doing. All of my friends can tell you that. Every time I go to a job interview, I always say, I need a job that I communicate with people because if I'm sitting in a cubicle all day long, I will quit within like 3 weeks. So
Yeah.
I mean, hearing your story, it helps me realize, okay, I'm not the only one like struggling. I'm not the only one that has to be forced to pivot. I guess it's just the way the cookie crumbles and it goes back into like the art of letting go. And I always struggle with that because I'm impatient and I like a plan. So it's very hard to let go when you're impatient and you have a plan. So it's, even with this, it's like sometimes I have notes, but then I feel like I get so caught up in my head. Sometimes I feel like I don't listen and just let things go and just let a conversation flow and just be in the moment. So I love that you have that, message of the art of letting go. I feel like it's so hard. Have you ever had hard moments of just letting go and letting being free? I know you talk about every step and different variants of letting go, but have you ever had a hard one?
For sure. I would say I've had a lot of them. A lot of times when I'm faced with a challenge and I'm in it, I'm usually not even aware that I'm going through it. So I'm kind of just in it, going through it. And once I'm aware of it, I can kind of pull myself out. But yeah, I think I do have a lot of challenges. I think my podcast is probably called The Art of Letting Go because I do have the hardest time of letting go. Like I have a lot of challenges in transition and growing and outgrowing, whether that's people, places, or things. Like it's challenging and it never gets easy, and sometimes it's painful. But I think that's why it's so important to have the tools to heal yourself and to continue progressing, because it's not easy for any of us. Even as
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to you talking about booking guests, like, something that I used to do, kind of going back to what you were saying about manifesting, and I'm actually going to do probably this week for myself, is make a list of all the people you want to talk to, write it down, put it on paper. So when, if you have a list of 100 people and you get 10 of them, it's like, wow, I accomplished this. And even looking at that list, and you may have Beyonce on that list, but you may not be able to get to Beyonce directly, but maybe you could get Julius.
Yes.
Maybe you can get Blue Ivy's babysitter. Like
Yes.
maybe you can take those steps to get to the person that you want to get to. So
Yeah.
I would say, like, just keep pushing in that, and you know give yourself grace, and just know that what you want will come. It's just the universe testing you. Like, you say you get impatient, the universe is testing your patience. It's trying to see how bad you want it, because you could get it all today, but then what are you gonna do with it? So I say just keep
I think
pushing
you
in the
broke up for a
journey,
second.
and it'll all come to you.
Are you okay? You're back. You kind of
Yeah, I'm
paused
here.
for a little bit, but maybe,
Yeah,
hopefully, Riverside caught that. But I heard something that you were saying about, would you want to interview Beyonce? Because I've thought about this, right? I don't want to interview Beyonce if I'm just going to get the normal questions. You know what I mean? If that's what's going to happen, then I'd rather just have a private conversation with you and sign an NDA and let that be. I think if I had Julius, I would have a way better, more conversation with Julius than Beyonce. I truly, honestly do. Because Beyonce at this point is too like robotic. Like she's too much of a protected machine to where I want you to be open and vulnerable. Like I want you to tell me what happened that went down in that elevator, and I will ask. Because why else would we be sitting here? You know what I mean? I don't want to talk about your perfume. I don't wear it, so I want to know what happened at that Met Gala. But
I
that's
I
she.
would want I would want to talk to her, just because we're from the same city, and I feel like I could get her to be vulnerable, even with the NDA, and they may ask me to cut out some things or whatever, but I still feel like I would at least get to get those questions answered for myself that I would want to ask, and whatever they allow me to put out publicly, I would. But I think I would want to talk to Beyonce, just because she doesn't share much with the
Mm-hmm,
world. So I would love to just have a conversation with her about
mm-hmm,
life.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to tell her. Would you tell her how much her music impacts you? Like, what would you do if you saw her? Because that's something too. I'm like, what would I do? Would I just keep it cute, keep it simple, keep it moving, or would I just be there like crying and be like, "This is my only moment"?
Well, first, I probably remind her that we went to elementary school together. Fun fact.
Do you have the
But
yearbook?
so I was in the same class as Solange, and my mom found a picture of me and Solange together. I was gonna post it online to see if maybe that could be my entry point to connecting with Solange.
We were just talking about
But
manifesting, so put that out there. Put that out there.
but yeah, I think I would love to just see how she feels about her impact in the
Yes.
world. You know what I mean? Like, I could tell her all day, but she hears that all day. But I would love to hear how she feels about her impact.
Yeah. I love when she was talking about how I haven't seen the movie, but I did go to the concert, and they were talking about in the movie that she says that she has nothing to prove anymore. And I was like, you didn't have anything to prove like before you started Beyonce and Lemonade and now Renaissance and whatever you have moving forward. So yeah, I'm interested to see how that pandemic switched her mindset, because I feel like we're getting a new side of her. And, she talks about not being perfect. She's here to create. But once again, I don't know if this is like the balance part of me, the devil and the angel part of me, but Beyonce is a calculator. She's a machine. She is a entity. She spent 4 years with this concert. So I'm sure she was scheduled to say some things and to say some things here. So, she's an artist.
And I
Artists take what the time is and what people are feeling and then give that to you. And so being perfect and imperfect or whatever was what we need to go through.
and I think that there's a difference between being perfect and taking your time.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I think she just took her time with it because she had an idea of how she wanted it to feel and how she wanted to present it to the world. Like, I think she didn't want to rush it, you know. And even like you said, just hearing her say like, she is a like she's human. She's just trying to figure this out
Yeah.
like the rest of us, just at a higher scale. Like you said, she didn't have anything to prove. Like, you know, I hope that we all get to a place where, we like I think that pushes you. I think that drives you like
Yeah.
for yourself. Like it's not about anybody else. And like I don't think she had anything to prove to
No.
anybody else. I think for herself, she was working at whatever and she probably hit it and was just like, now I can be free. And,
Yes.
I aspire to get there in my creative journey because granted, I don't have anything to prove to anybody publicly, but there's still some goals that I still want to achieve. Like I still don't feel like, regardless of how people tell me they see me or what I project in the world, I don't feel like I'm at the level I want to be at, so I appreciate you sharing that because that's making me give myself some grace as well.
Yes. Well, I right back at you because I just told my friend this too on the other podcast. He talks about how he see things in me, and I'm just like, I appreciate all my friends saying it, but I don't feel it yet. Like I don't feel like I'm in that pocket. I don't feel like I'm in that zone. And I think like this conversation right here is helping because it's what I've been yearning or looking for. Like that, like, am I missing the sweet spot because I'm interviewing people that I already know? Because that is a huge portion of curious. It's like you got to be curious. You have to want to step out of your own zone. I'm still in my zone. And like now that I'm out of my zone, can we continue, moving this forward? But I want to talk to you
But
about
I,
another.
I, but before we go on, I want to tell
Yeah.
you, I think that that's a great start. Just talking to people that like that's
Yeah.
how you build your confidence up.
Yeah.
That's how you practice. Like, I've done 200. I've released 206 episodes, but I've recorded way more than that.
Yeah.
And in that time, like, I would say maybe the first 40 I spent talking to friends, and it in having a conversation with a friend, I'm able to be more relaxed in my
Yeah.
conversation and not be so nervous about asking questions. And by the time I do talk to somebody else that I don't know, it's like, I've done this so
Yeah.
many times.
Yeah.
Like, I know what I'm doing. So I say keep talking to your friends and keep
Yeah.
building your confidence up because that dream episode is gonna come up
Yeah.
and you want to be prepared for it. So keep talking to your friends.
Well, I'm gonna take this out because I don't want them to get big headed when they hear this. They're gonna be like, oh, so now blah blah blah. They're gonna be texting me every single day now. Like, oh well, Mike's like keep talking to us. I'm like, no, girl, I
But
gotta spread my wings.
that means they're listening.
Yes, they are. Trust me, they are. Okay, but you said something about your dream podcast. I was having this conversation with someone about. I asked him for advice, and it didn't go well. Let's just put it like that. Um, but I want to. There's this in that conversation. There was this bubbling conversation about because I told him I want to have guests, right? And I'm not necessarily reaching for people that have 200,000 or 100,000, although they're on my list. I don't want to say I want to be realistic, but I feel like when people start going to when they have those numbers, when they start looking at me, they're going to be like, well, what, like, what is this? I got X amount of numbers. You don't, like, what are we doing? So, and I also love that Issa Rae quote about networking around you instead of always trying to reach up. So that's what I'm trying to do. And he was talking about, well, you just need that one guest, you need that one whatever, whatever. And it kind of, I always make an analogy with podcasting and making music. Like podcasting is a song, or you can do a collection of podcasts that can be an album. But every single music artist needs that one radio hit. And as soon as they have that one radio hit, their career takes off. Do you think, as in podcasting, we need that one radio hit to take off? Or could we be one of those artists that stay true to the craft and just hope for the best?
I think you can stay true. And I say that because podcasting is so new that there aren't many rules just yet. So I think we're all getting in at a good entry point where it's like you can dictate how this goes. Like there's no rules to how long, there in music there's song structures, how a song has to be, what's this, what's that. In this, I could put out an hour long episode and I could put out a 10-minute episode. Like I really can do whatever I want to do. And I think the beauty of podcasting is really in building community. Like, music is so like entertainment in general is just so based on fan base
Yes.
and, this celebrity and this
Yes.
star. And in podcasting, it's like I'm reachable, like you could reach out to me, send me an email or contact me or let me know what you feel. And I'm gonna get back to you because like you're a part of my community now, So yeah, there's a different allure to like there's no building a mystery in a podcast because you have to be vulnerable. Like in music, you can build up this mysterious character. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I really believe in the dream episode so much as like really just staying true to yourself because when I worked with Spotify, I was recording in my bedroom, recording in my studio apartment with not so great microphones, sometimes on my cell phone, and didn't have any major guests. Still, I mean, I've had a couple of people that I would consider like when you say the scale of
Yeah.
that's why even going back to the numbers, like I would say none of that's real, man.
No.
Like what I would really do, and this is me speaking to like everybody that is starting a podcast, thinking about starting a podcast, like really get your pitch together of what your show is about. Like that's the selling point of it. Like I think people really buy into the black male vulnerability of my show, and when I reach out to people, I make sure I tell them like, "Hey, this is what this show is about, and this is why I want you on here." And when they see it, like, send them a sample episode, send them something to hear, let them know what you do, show them your artwork, sell it to them, and you'll be surprised who hears it. I've like I said, I've had people that are my friends, I've had people that are on my level, I've had people as big as like Dr. David Johns, who I see on CNN all the time.
Hmm.
And it's like he was on my podcast just because I reached out.
Hmm.
So I would say shoot all those shots,
Hmm.
but have that pitch in order so people know what they're getting themselves into.
Hmm.
Because it's like, even as a musician, I could want to work with somebody that's bigger than me, and they might want to do it just based off how they feel about what I'm doing, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part for me too, because I'm one of those people like if I'm going to put in the work, I want to see the results. And so when
Yeah,
I send, that's why I was super grateful for you because you respond so quickly, and that kind of spoils me because now when I go to people, I'm like, "Hello, he can respond. Why did you respond?" And like, there's no excuse. And I'm reaching out to this guy, and he's responding, and he's like, "Let me check it out," but he hasn't said anything. So it's a balance between like, I don't want to beg,
for
but
sure.
I do want you, and I reached out to someone else in his field and they didn't respond. This is the first person that's responding. But it's yeah, because it's just nerve wracking too when you're a podcast that needs guests, right? Because then you're looking at the future and be like, well, how do we continue to keep moving forward? So I like that, that I mean, and once again, it's going back to the art of letting go. It's like it's still truly going back to you can't control what you can't control. You can only control what you have. And, it's not necessarily a failure. It's a learning moment, but it's still hard when the storm of the tornado to see, the
For
exit.
sure, for sure, and even in begging, because trust me, I've been there as well. Like I don't want to beg people, but you can bug people. If you reach out to somebody and they don't get back to you, hit them up next month, hit them up the following month.
Yeah.
Keep just hitting them up till, and if it, and this is if it's somebody that you really want, like if this is somebody you feel like this person would be valuable to my platform, keep reaching out,
Yeah.
and at some point that person will say, damn, this person is consistent, let me see what this is about and
Yes.
make this happen. Like some of my opportunities have came from that, of just like constantly consistently hitting
Yeah.
people up, and they finally just give in, or not even give in, it's just like timing works out.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
everybody's busy, everybody has their own schedule. So sometimes it's not even about what you're doing. It's just they may not have the time, but if you're constantly putting yourself in their face, when they have that time, they're gonna make the time for you.
Yeah. 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 I just like it's so easy said than done. But for me, I just get so caught up in my head. And it's just like you just know who you are, and you know that like I promise you you'll be safe. I promise you, like, and I don't want to be like, let me send you the questions because I also don't once again like I said with Beyonce, I don't want it to be forced. I don't want it to be calculated. I don't want it to be scheduled, which is interesting because I'm someone who is trying to let go of a schedule. So it's interesting that I'm trying to make a product that's like, we're not here to be cookie cutter. But yeah, I always try to tell myself everyone has their own schedule, everyone has their own reasons why, and it's not always because of you. And I think that's what I'm learning through therapy and learning through once again of the art of letting go is letting go of the thinking that you are the reason why they don't want to show up, like thinking that it's because you're not good enough or because it's not ready enough. Instead of just drop something. Instead of you know thinking that they're a human being with human trauma and other things that they have to deal with and let them deal with that so you can have you know yeah just so it's just like letting go. But yeah, I yeah, I like that. I like that. Any advice for any upcoming podcasters? Any, you know what, actually scratch that. Any advice for any just black men who are trying to heal and the art of letting go?
Advice for black men that are trying to heal. Go to therapy. Stop. Like, don't project on your friends, your family. Go to therapy. Really gain the tools that you need. Just and even if you don't stick with it, try it out. Um, just get a foundation of some tools to help you in your journey because it's not easy doing it alone. It's not. And you know, I know a lot of us try our best to just figure it out, but I'm telling you, this is a great place to go figure it out. The first time I ever did therapy, it gave me a rush, and I'm not in it right now because I needed a break because I didn't feel like I was doing any work. So that's what I'm saying. Like, go there, do the work. You'll feel when you don't need it, and just knowing that it's a tool, so it's always there for you. Like, if I need to go next month, I'll jump back in. But right now, I'm in a space where I just I check in with my therapist maybe every 3 months. Because that's kind of where I'm at in my journey. But yeah, go to therapy.
Yeah, when I my first, like I said, my first session, I closed the laptop and I went on Amazon and I started buying two mics. I was like, the podcast is this is the answer I'm looking for. Yeah, and I like that, go to therapy and yeah, I go through therapy. I have not in a long time. I think the last time was October, so it's not that long ago. I am actively about to call her back up because my therapist switches different facilities. So depending on the facility that she's working for, it changes the price. And because
Yeah,
thank God I have insurance, I only have to pay $25 a session. So now I'm like, okay, it's time to go like every day because that is a blessing. But I
yeah.
know some people say that therapy isn't for them. Um, I would say try something. I know this is controversial, but it's just my opinion. Try something other than the Lord Jesus Savior Christ. Like just try something other than the church. You know. Boy, what was your reaction?
I'm laughing one because that's funny, but also like when I hear people say that they don't need it, like you do.
Yeah.
Um, it's a place that you can go talk with an unbiased opinion. Like you don't go there looking for somebody to tell you how to live your life or how to like. You go there to hear all those crazy, not even crazy. I'm not going to use the word crazy because that's not
Hmm.
that's not
Yes.
that's not going to inspire anybody to go. But when you have those thoughts that just don't make sense in your head and you hear them out loud, like F the other person that's sitting across from you. Like you hear that thought and you're like, man, that doesn't sound right. And you get to explore that. Like just through saying it out loud, you get to explore why you think like that. Why is this coming up? What's making you what is that thing that's triggering that thought? So yeah, like that whole therapy is not for me. That's some BS.
So you think it's BS? Because I know
I
people who
do.
say that they like do medications and stuff, and it's hard. It changed my life, and like what you said, hearing the things out loud. There are thousands of times where I just spoke my feelings and then heard myself, and then have my therapist look at me like this, and then I'm like, "Yeah, that sounded dumb, didn't it?" And she'd be like, "So when you're like, sometimes you just need to hear yourself out loud, and then you hear yourself real loud, you're like, damn,
I've
yeah,
I've had therapists that would stare at me. Like I would say things, stare at me, and not give me a positive or negative reaction. Just and then when we're sitting there in silence, I say something else because of this uncomfortable silence that's making me now dig deeper into why did I say this? Okay, I said this because I experienced this before, and then I experienced this time. Oh, and I'm seeing a pattern. So you it gives me a rush like
yes."
to talk to somebody and like figuring out it's like figuring out a puzzle of yourself, you know.
Yes. I love that. I've always been like I'm in astrology. I love learning about myself through other people. So therapy wasn't anything that I was afraid of, but I love when my therapist loves to put me on pause because now I'm one of those people like, okay, I have a story for you. So she not puts me on pause, but she puts me on mute. And then she gets her or puts herself on mute and then gets her pad and she just sits there. And I love when all of a sudden she'll be like, and I was just like, "What did I say? Like, what did I do?" And she was just like, "Oh, nothing, just taking notes." And I'm just like, "Let me see those notes." Like, what? What did I say? But I have a good relationship. I'm very lucky that I found one therapist and I kept her ever since. And yeah, you just have to be honest. That's another thing too. I think people don't want to do the work. They think it's just like going to be this magic fix. They think that their monster is going to go away, or I will call like a stain. Like a therapist is just like a heavy duty washer. Like the stain is going to be there. They can lighten it up for you, but like you're just going to have to live with your favorite shirt having a stain and knowing where that came from and just being fine with that. And I think some people rather just get a whole new shirt, and it's just like it just can't work that way. So, you know, and yeah, I just I don't know. I just like I said in the very beginning, Black people push culture in order to get more healthier men, more better romance in the gay community. Black people are going to have to be the ones to do it, and it sucks. But it's the privilege of being Black. That's what I say. It's a privilege of being Black. You're going to have to be the first one to do it, and eventually, in 20, 50 years, they'll put you somewhere in a history book giving you credit. But you know, you just have to take it.
That's hilarious.
Well, any final words, any wrap up or anything? I feel like this is I let me tell you this. I had a blast. I had so much
I,
fun. I
I
felt
did
like the
too.
time went by so fast. This truly gave me the answer that I have been looking for because although you want me to have my friends on, which I will, I still need to spread my wings to like get people who I don't know because that is the true heart of Curious is learning from other people, sharing stories, sharing moments, not feeling alone. uh, yeah, and you helped me realize that. And so, although it's going to be a bittersweet situation, because now I feel like I got the fire, but now I got to get people to come on my podcast. So now I'm like sitting here like, fuck, I know I can do it, but you guys don't believe in me. But never, I'm digressing. Anything else that you want to say? Any wrap ups? Anything that you want to plug or have people follow up and just follow you and stuff like that?
Yeah. First, thank you for having me on the show.
No problem.
Um, you guys can follow me at the Art of Letting Go podcast on all social media. I just joined Twitter again, well X, and it's podcast underscore poppy. Um, I released some music, project called Desert Thoughts. I'm actually putting some more music out in January, so look for that under my real name, Mike Brown. I don't have a stage name. It's just me. Uh, the Art of Letting Go podcast is available everywhere, and yeah, I thank you guys for listening. I thank you guys for sharing the space. I thank you for sharing the space with
Of
me to
course.
just share my journey. This was fun.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Like I said, I have a blast. And the door is always open if you need a guest or you need anyone. If you need to review the music of the year, let me know. I got some thoughts. I have some of my albums that I like. But yeah, I had a great time. So thank you so much. And hopefully we'll continue to stay in touch and connect again.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Mike. Have a nice day.
All right, you too. Thank
Bye.
you.